Alright, what's going on everybody? Today I'm going to be talking about Omnivamp items because they're the item class that I see the most players misunderstand, including a lot of players at the highest level who I think are building suboptimally, at least when it comes to which upgrade path they're picking within the Omnivamp items. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about which items I think are most viable on certain characters and in which situations. So just to start off, I'm going to talk about what I think makes a good Omnivamp user in the first place. And a lot of that boils down to not running out of juice in the middle of the fight. By juice, I mean your ability to do damage, basically. So I got it divided into two main classes: the juice dumpers, which are more burst oriented characters when it comes to how they do damage, and then the big squeezers, who can also do burst, but their main strength is their ability to do sustained damage. So I want to talk a bit about the juice dumpers first. I'm going to use Void as an example. All right, so I've got what I think is SUPERVIVE's best example of a juice dumper in Void. So let's just say I'm trying to 1v1 this Shrike, or the Shrike's standing around a bunch of people, and I do something like this. And now she's dead, but if you look at my cooldowns, I have like a significant amount of time before I can really do anything. So if I'm taking damage during this time, I can't really heal with Omnivamp because I can't do any damage to proc the Omnivamp in the first place. So you're really a lot better off on these kinds of characters just trying to sneak off to the side and then popping a Vive Brew. Alright, so now on to the big squeezers, who I think are the best Omnivamp users in the game. And their defining quality is that they don't run out of juice in the fight. So with Felix and Hudson, it's pretty straightforward. You're basically just holding down your LMB at anybody who's in your threat range. Felix, you're diving into the enemy team. You're going to take a bunch of damage from that, but then you'll slowly Omnivamp to try to heal back up through burning them with your abilities and your LMB. Hudson's kind of a similar idea, where you're just doing constant damage throughout the fight, and a good amount, so that damage is just going to be healing you throughout the fight. Brawl is pretty similar in the sense that you're kind of just diving on to ranged characters and trying to stay on top of them and slap them with your sword. And the extra Omnivamp lets you maintain that uptime and recover HP that you lost closing the gap in the first place. There's a similar idea with Jhin, but I lump them more in with these two because their juice mostly comes from getting resets on their abilities. So Jhin through Nox, Jewel through resetting her passive dash, Shiv through hitting her shots after she dashes. So these guys actually turn into pretty bad Omnivamp users if they run out of juice. I'll edit that out. Alright, so now to talk about the Omnivamp items themselves. So just comparing the base stats and not looking at the passives, Overdrive gives the most amount of stats just at base. So Last Stand will give you increased Omnivamp and healing if you fall below 40% HP, but 41% HP and up, you're getting more value from Overdrive just straight up. And then Overdrive also gives you the ability to overheal and have a temporary shield based on your Omnivamp. Now it's time to zoom in on Last Stand, which is the main reason I'm making this video in the first place. I think it's the most over-purchased out of the Omnivamp items. I see players defaulting to this on any character that they're building Omnivamp on, and I don't think it's necessarily bad. I just don't think it's optimal. So I'm going to explain why I think the other items are going to give you more value in more situations on certain characters. So I do think that these three characters are good with Last Stand, probably the best users of it in the game. And the main reason for that is you have to lose 60% of your HP to get more value out of this than the alternatives. And by and large, like, most characters are trying to leave a fight if they're below 40% HP. Like, you're really not trying to stay in the fight. You're trying to leave, pop some food, and then maybe re-enter the fight once you've recovered some HP. But with Brawl and Felix especially, you're kind of just going in, and the only way out is through. And by that I mean you either kill people and get your healing off, or you're just going to go in and die. But you do have tools to avoid dying when you're at low HP. So Brawl has his invulnerability, and then Felix has his shield. So they both have the ability to play around this 40% HP without just getting one shot once they get down to below that value. Hudson, I think, is a little bit different. The reason I think Hudson's a good user of Last Stand is most of the time you're not going to be able to damage enemies at your max range unless they're bad and just running at you in a straight line. So most of the time you're able to fully DPS somebody. They're already going to be on top of you, damaging you, and you kind of just want to be able to outlast them in a fight. So that's why I have Hudson on here. Jhin, I have it as situationally good if you're going Qmax to get that shield on your flip slash. That way, similar to Brawl and Felix, you have a tool to preserve your HP when you're at 40%. I don't think it's great on Jhin just because, kind of like I was talking about earlier, if you're below 40% HP on Jhin, you're liable to get one shot by pretty much anything. And then I think it's bait on Shiv and Jewel, and I'll explain why. I'm in practice tool with Jewel. I got my Last Stand on, and I just want to show y'all how little HP 40% is on a squishy character like Jewel. So got my storm grenades, cooking my HP, and you'll see Last Stand come on in the corner here once I'm below 40%. Alright, so now I'm in Last Stand range. So I have to play within this amount of HP to actually get value out of this item. And I'm already passively healed up out of the range of it. But if I'm at these 2 bars of health as Jewel, I'm dead to anything that hits me. Like, I'm not going to drain tank through this by autoing. My best bet is either a passive reset dash, which is going to overheal you past the threshold anyway, or using my dash to get out, or using my ult to get out. Basically, like, you're not going to sit there and try to... You would never start a fight with Jewel at this HP, the way you might with someone like Brawl, who can tank through an infinite amount of damage with his invulnerability. So I'm going to show you guys what this looks like in the context of an actual game. Take a look at this clip from my stream earlier this week. I'm playing Jewel, and I think it does a good job of showing how Overdrive is typically going to get more value in a fight than Last Stand on these kinds of range DPS characters. So you'll notice that I spend a good portion of the beginning of this fight at full HP. So no other Omnivamp item is going to give me any value if I'm at full HP. So I get some overshield value when I dive into the enemy team, and then we'll see how it plays out. So we let the fight cook a little bit. I'm stacking up on the Shrike here with my passive, and then I dash through. Fat overshield. Okay, and notice I'm in the middle of everybody, and even in that situation, I'm not even close to proccing Last Stand when I'm in the middle of the entire enemy team. And that's because I'm just not getting hit by damaging abilities, and I use my invulnerability from my dash to dash out before any abilities hit me. And then we'll see what happens once I waste my dash to get out at a bad angle like a noob. So in this situation, I've got no dash. So really what I should be doing is running up this way and just praying that KP doesn't have hook, which I don't think he does. But what I decide to do is go for my dash reset on this Zeph with my right click, and then we'll see what happens. Yeah, I miss and just fucking die. But you'll notice that Last Stand wouldn't have procced in this fight until right about now. Like, about now is when Last Stand would have procced. And in this scenario, Omnivamp is not helping me at all, because I'm completely out of juice. Pretty much all of Jule's damage is gated behind her fully charged dash. I've got no dash, no way to reset my dash, no spells to peel people off of me. I'm dead regardless of how much Omnivamp I have in this situation. And if I still have my dash, the base Omnivamp from Overdrive is going to be enough to help me survive with the amount of spells that I'll be able to dodge with that invulnerability. All right, so I got this clip just to kind of show y'all how crazy the overshield can get, especially on characters that do a lot of AoE damage like Jewel once you have your left shift maxed. In this video, I have a fully upgraded greed, so I have increased Omnivamp from that on top of my overdrive. But just check this shit out real quick. I've literally just doubled my HP bar with this shield. Now, obviously, this is like the most optimal situation for stacking up a shield, but having a late game team fight with people grouped up like this that you can get multiple dashes off of is not entirely unrealistic, especially if you're playing towards Jule's like ideal gameplay, which is just playing for dash resets. This situation, or at least something close to it, is going to be happening in fights. Just to summarize, Overdrive has the most base Omnivamp, lets you get the most value out of Omnivamp at full HP, and it's best on mid-range DPS characters, which allows them to keep high HP throughout the fight. So Jewel and Shiv mostly. Ghost can also build it if you're not running an amplifier build, and you're doing most of your damage with your LMB instead of your abilities. So I think a lot of the reason that people are drawn to building Last Stand on characters like Jewel and Shiv is the idea that you can play on the margins with your HP and really get maximum value out of it, even though Overdrive is going to give you more effective HP in a lot of situations. But what I think you should do instead, if that's your idea on Shiv or Jewel, is build Greed. You go Greed plus Overdrive, and like you saw in that Jewel clip I had, you can heal and get a ridiculous overshield. But if you do also decide to go Last Stand with Greed, it gives you more of a margin to play on with this 40% HP threshold since you have more overall HP. Also, if you're able to fully stack Greed, it just gives you a ridiculous amount of stats, which is obviously 12,000 gold is kind of a lot. But if you're playing in solo queue and you're playing to play on the margins of your HP, you can afford to not buy or repair armor and stack your Greed instead, is what I think. So yeah, have fun with this build. And just to reiterate my previous point, if I'm playing Shiv, my main goal is to be dancing around the outside of the fight and keeping my dash up. And then if I get to a point where I'm liable to take damage that's going to take me down to 40%, it probably means I missed my dash reset, and now I don't have any damage to make use of the increased Omnivamp anyway. Obviously, you have your ult to try to drain tank through some stuff, but I think the more reliable way to play is just trying to avoid damage in the first place. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video, or at least hope it made you think about something. If you disagree with me or agree with me, leave it in the comments. Love to hash it out. And yeah, I'll be making a separate video on Swiftblade just because this already ended up longer than I anticipated. And I feel like Swiftblade doesn't directly compete in the way that Overdrive and Last Stand do. But yeah, until next time.